Coogs house. Year 2 with the Willie Fritz era is going to be exciting. The offense is new and improved. It's going to be a great year, but the win-loss over-under marks are out, and they're too low.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Coogs, the daily podcast about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth. Whether you're a Houston fan or just a hater who came to step by, thank you for making Locked On Coogs your first listen of the day. Appreciate making your first listen each and every day here at Locked On Coogs, at the everydayer that you are. If you want to join the conversation, but you don't know what to say, talk to us about what kind of rice you like best. You're a basmati person, brown rice person, maybe a little bit of sticky rice. Tell us in the comments down below. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. This place gets last thing, the lowest prices guaranteed. More on that fun later. We got a fun show today. We're talking about the over and unders in the football season this fall to open things up. We do have some latest tidbits about the Milos Uzan NBA draft combine and how those things are looking right now. He has through the weekend, obviously. Last but not least, we got to talk about Houston crushing Arizona in baseball. But as we said first, the over-under numbers are out for the entire Big 12 here. FanDuel, our buddies over at FanDuel, have Houston at 5.5 games over-under. So you would be picking they either win 6 or more games or 5 or less games, which would put them kind of in that bottom half of the conference. And what's fascinating to me about this, as I look at it, is if I'm being completely honest, I think that's just way too low. And so what I did here was I pulled up Houston's schedule alongside it as well and kind of started to look at like, well, what does this really mean for the Cougs? Ultimately, I just don't know why that number is as low as it is. So Houston opens with Stephen F. Austin. That's a Thursday game of the of holiday weekend, and that's apparently the reason that Eddie Nunez says they're playing Thursdays because by Saturday they anticipate people being out of town for the holiday, and so why fight that? Why not embrace that and play on Thursday night? They have at Rice the week after that, and then they have the Colorado Buffaloes coming to town mid-September. After a week off, they head out to Oregon to play Oregon State. That's the non-conference slate. Colorado's actually a conference game, and that still feels weird to say that's a conference game. I am going to say that first 4-game stretch, Houston ought to win at least 3 games. And frankly, with a new starting quarterback in Colorado, it being in Houston, it is a Friday night game as opposed to like a Saturday afternoon heat game where you think that's a home field advantage. I think that Houston should win at least 3 of those first 4 games. That already has you more than halfway to that 5.5 mark, right? Then you go Texas Tech. Look, they did a lot of NIL stuff. We'll know more about them once they play a few games together. That's your next Saturday game, or your first Saturday conference game at TDCU Stadium. Obviously, they look talented. They're going to be ranked going into the season, I'm sure, and all that kind of stuff. But I want to see them play before I make too much of a pass at that. Then you're heading to Oklahoma State. Obviously, it's a road game, but certainly a beatable team. Arizona comes here. They replace a lot of talent. I think Houston can get that one as well. Then you're at Arizona State, who won the conference a year ago, has a really good quarterback. They did lose Cam Scatterbo, though, which was a big part of the heart and soul of that team. I don't know, man. I look at the next 4 games, and I think I got a couple wins there as well. And suddenly Houston's already up to 5 games won with 4 remaining. The final 4, West Virginia at home, at UCF, TCU at home, and at Baylor. Now, West Virginia, you beat on a Hail Mary, obviously, the last time you played them. But West Virginia is at the bottom of the conference in terms of wins and losses on most every projection. Frankly, they're rebuilding things under Rich Rod there. You think you can get them. You got them a couple years ago, and they were not rebuilding, and you were. I think you got them this year. UCF, obviously, is doing their own rebuild. They also entered the conference at the same time as you from the American, so you should feel somewhat good about where you are comparatively there. Is road game in Orlando, but I don't know. I feel good about that one. TCU at TDECU. You beat them a year ago. I think Houston's going to be better this fall than they were a year ago. I'm sure TCU is saying the same, but that's another one that I feel like you can win. And at Baylor, it pains me a lot to say that I think Baylor's going to be pretty good this year. Quarterback plays me good for them. They spent good money on things in the offseason. I don't think they're unbeatable by any stretch. But let's just say, well, we're flipping coins here. That one doesn't go your way. That's three more. We're looking in a very simple, quick search here at easily getting past that 5.5 mark. Now, I know that there's pessimists typing away in the comment section beneath me right now about how delusional I am and da 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 da. But I don't think it's that crazy to think about each of those games as being winnable. And we're not really close at that point to the over under 5 mark, over under 5.5 mark. We're closer to the 6.5, 7 mark by just looking through that schedule. What I'm looking at when I see this win loss total on FanDuel at 5.5 and looking at where it fits in the conference is a lot of people saying where Houston ranked in the conference last year. A lot of people saying that, they lost some talent, some guys transferred out in the secondary and stuff like that, and all those kinds of things. And then they're looking at Houston and say, okay, well, they're going to be in the bottom portion of the conference, so that means they must have this win total, right? They're not looking at this year's schedule versus last year's schedule. Houston's schedule last year was much more challenging in terms of previous season win-loss record, right? Houston's schedule last year had a much stronger Power 4 opponent in it in the non-conference. Houston's schedule last year had, honestly, a much more challenging pair of non-Power 4 opponents in the non-conference. This shapes up to be a much more favorable schedule for Houston, and we haven't even factored in the Willie Fritz this whole thing. Willie Fritz, wherever he's been, finds ways to win a game or two every year. It was Kansas State for Houston a year ago. It was USC when he was at Tulane a couple years ago. He finds ways to win games that no one thinks he's going to win, right? So you've got to at least factor in an extra win on the record there just from that happening. Even if you thought last year's team was going to be terrible, they got that win over Kansas State that no one in America, essentially knocked Kansas State out of Big 12 title contention. No one thought they were going to get that one, right? And I don't know if that's Tech, if it's Baylor, or if it's Arizona State, whoever it is this year. But there will be a game that Houston's not supposed to win. That they will. And I just feel like 5.5 is insultingly low. I know it's May. These numbers don't matter. They're meant to draw people into the sports books and things like that. And frankly, we got some great deals of FanDuel right now to get on that sports book and on that action. However, I will say very plainly that I think that number's just too darn low. If it was 6.5, I'd see it. You don't want to go too far on a limb, etc. This team feels bowl eligible to me before we've even played a game. I understand they lost some talent in the secondary. I do. The offense is much, much improved. I just feel like this is a team with more of an identity. It's got a stronger holistic offensive line, like all 5 spots feel stronger. I just think things are moving in the right direction. Obviously, in the terms of the rebuild, we're looking to get to the level where you're winning the Big 12. You're looking to get to the level where you're competing to get to the CFP and things like that. That's why we pay attention to those things at a much broader scale in other segments on other episodes, right? I don't mean to say that's not in the future of this program. It's just not in the immediate future. The immediate future of this program is getting back into bowl season next year, getting that month of practice, getting those kinds of extra things for your program, getting that prestige of playing in, frankly, a fun environment for some guys in December. And so we'll see where all that shapes out. We'll see, as those lines and things like that can adjust. So as those things adjust, we'll adjust with them and talk more about them. We'll also, frankly, be following Houston Cougar news throughout the football offseason and, of course, preview that exciting Willie Fritz year 2 with Connor Wegman at quarterback, Rashawn Stanford taking over the reins at running back full time. Just a fun group to be following. Speaking of fun groups, it's hard to think of anything more fun than what Houston Cougar basketball program has become the last 10 years. Milos Uzan returning to Houston would continue that trend. Not that they can't do without him, but we're still figuring out if they're going to have to or not as his NBA draft combine stuff continues. So we're getting to that in 1 second. But before we get to any of that, I do want to remind you that today's show is brought to you by our buddies over at Game Time. Because with Game Time, best place to get laptops at the lowest price guaranteed. It's here to help you get into things like the NBA playoffs, the concerts, the theater, whatever you're into. Game Time can help you get there. Now, listen, I know the Rockets are the playoffs, but if you want an electric atmosphere, Game 7, Oklahoma City Thunder, Denver Nuggets this weekend, check out the tickets on Game Time. Right now on Game Time, I can get into the Thunder game for in the $200 range. It's got great deals all over the stadium, all in pricing. So that's $200 range, everything included. I can see what's going to look like from my seat in the venue, exactly what I'm seeing. It's a great way to see exactly what you're getting and get the best deal guaranteed. Get the best price always. Get you 110% back the difference credited if you can find the same row and section cheaper somewhere else. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Park Ranger, the Locked On Coogs here, talking about the never-ending saga of Milos Uzan in the NBA draft. The combine continues. If you haven't been following along with us this whole time, Milos Uzan starting point guard for the Houston Cougars last season, 65 seconds away from winning a national title. 6'3", $185, shot over 40% from three, point guard. He is in the NBA draft combine with the ability to come back to college. And I'm hearing more and more projections of him being picked in the mid 40s of the NBA draft, which is mid-second round, which is notable because of the lack of guaranteed money there. He told Chris Baldwin in Paper City Magazine that he wants guaranteed money, a guaranteed contract if he stays in the draft from someone. It does not look like that's intuitively going to happen. I would point out, though, that the more this goes on, it feels like the more likely it is that he comes back to Houston. He had an up and down scrimmage and he had great drills and da-da-da-da-da. But ultimately, I almost wonder if this just becomes a financial decision because even with a guaranteed contract, in that late first, early second round, like the 30th pick in the NBA draft is looking to make around $2 million, and their first it's a guaranteed contract of about $2 million. I don't mean to assume anything. The world is crazy at all times, but Houston is one of the 10 best schools in basketball NIL budgets. I think they could be competitive with a NBA offer for him in that early second round, in that picks 34, 35, 36, 38 from the financial perspective. This does not have to be I need to go take this gig because I'm not going to find this money again kind of moment for Milos, as I guess what I'm saying. It really does come down to the basketball bit of this. And, he transferred to Houston and made a big impact in his first year starting point guard, learned the role over while playing it, missed part of the preseason with a broken nose and all that. Right. I would point out, though, how many guys have been that much better in their second year in the Houston program, over time, spending time in Houston, getting to know what's going on, adjusting to the expectations and the culture has been huge for a lot of guys as they come through Houston. And at a national level, you see a lot of second-year transfers, our own LJ Cryer included, have a ton of individual success in that second year, and frankly, help propel their teams to great team success in that second year. The AP All-Americans, if I'm reading things right here, of the 15 first, second, third team All-Americans, 9 of them were second-year transfer guys. So it stands to reason that Milos Uzan would have a better chance of being an All-American than a lot of other players if he came back next year. I also think about how Marcus Sasser and Jamal Shead, both guards that are both doing well when given time. Marcus hasn't, he played for a pretty good Detroit team this year, hadn't quite found the same amount of time as Jamal Shead did, but both guys have found success individually when given the opportunity in the NBA. I think both guys are people that NBA teams know, right, as far as like guards out there and whatever, right? Marcus, in the spring of 22, went and did this exact same ordeal, tested NBA waters, got told some things to work on, came back to Houston, had an All-American year, went on to be a top 25 pick, got that guaranteed contract in Detroit, right? Jamal Shead in the spring of 2023 went onto this NBA combine ordeal, came back, was Big 12 Player of the Year and an All-American for number one team in the country, Houston in 2023-4. When the NBA draft, got a contract, a guaranteed contract when he was drafted by the Toronto Raptors in the second round. And I think what's interesting in looking at both those guys is how similar their path is in a lot of ways, and how Milos is kind of building on into the same footsteps, right? Putting himself into those. But also how when Marcus was always a scorer, and Jamal could always do the running back HB dive thing to the basket, right? But how much more aggressive, confident those two guys were in the year after they tested the waters in the combine. It was a visible difference, right? Both guys had a great sense of seizing moments once they came back to Houston after testing those combine waters. I think it stands to reason that the exact same thing could happen to Milos Uzan. If you just look at last season, his first year at Houston, transfers in, learns the system, and again, missed part of the preseason, hurt. And from February 1st on, right? February 1st on, important conference games and tournament games, Big 12 and national. I understand that San Antonio was not his best friend, and I think that's a lot of people's last memory of him. But you got to remember that after February 1st, he had 14 double-digit scoring games. 7 of those were over 15 points. 3 of those he had over 20 points. He had 8 games of over 5 assists. He was frequently guarding the other team's best perimeter player as Houston's best perimeter defender. He was doing everything for the Houston Cougars. And that was in his second half of his first year in Houston. His second year in Houston, his year after getting the feedback from the pro scouts, I think it's as if the kind of year that would propel him into the first round. Again, this is not a guy that lacks positional size. He's 6'3" and change, 185 pounds, long arms. He's not a gigantic NBA point guard, but he's not too little to do it. And I think that if he has that kind of a year at Houston, you're hearing a lot of whispers about whether or not he'd be taken in that range where you see guaranteed draft picks or guaranteed money for draft picks, like so on and so forth like that. I think the chips are starting to stack up more, like coming back to Houston's the right thing to do. Obviously, the NIL era has a big part of this, that he can make similar money and coming back to Houston is important here, right? Shout out to Lincoln Coogs, Landon Gosling, the guys getting that done, right? The guys and gals, I should say, getting that done. But I just feel like this is a move that's going to make more and more sense. I'm not going to be surprised if he sticks in it and gets the childhood dream of getting drafted in the middle of the second round and goes on and tries to make it work out. Power to him, represent the university well. Thank you for your time there. However, you're hearing more and more insinuations that it is going to be that mid-40s, that mid-second round, no guaranteed money necessarily. Him entering the draft to me would mean that multiple teams have told him that even if we take you in that area, we will give you a contract. And that's putting a lot of faith and a lot of people shaking hands that I don't know if I could do personally, but power to him if he does. Speaking of power to you, Houston Cougar baseball, a lot of power Thursday night, Houston Cougar baseball. I want to talk about that in 1 second. Before we get to any of that, I do want to remind you that today's show is brought to you by our buddies over at Wayfair, because as the days get longer, the weather warms up. Sun is out longer, people spending more time outside. Means you got to refresh that outdoor space. You got to make sure you're working with a big backyard, small balcony, little patio, whatever you got going. Wayfair has everything you need to make it more like you. Wayfair's massive selection of outdoor essentials makes it easy to transform any space into your ideal summer setup. From comfy conversation sets to a sleek dining table outdoor decor, whatever you need. You want to set up a nice spot around your grill, nice spot to hang out, the steaks are on, whatever's going on. They've got something that can fit your budget. We, as I mentioned to you guys throughout this show for the last 8 months, moved into a new house in September. We've been kind of redoing the backyard as it gets, frankly, warmer out. Things for shade, things to sit on. Again, I like to sit on something while I'm having a beverage and grilling. That's all stuff we can find, and we have been finding at wayfair.com. Shop the huge selection of outdoor furniture this summer. Get outside with Wayfair. That's wayfair.com right now. Wayfair, WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style for every home. Park Rangers Locked On Coogs here, and we've been kind of following since basketball ended this baseball season, and Houston got a chance to do something kind of fun here and make some noise in the Big 12 tournament. That noise started Thursday night as Houston began a series with Arizona, the final regular season series with the Arizona Wildcats in the city of Houston. Houston was up. I guess they got the 5-4 lead in the fifth inning. It was kind of a competitive back and forth game. And then the bottom of the sixth inning, they just opened it up. Start off with a 3-run shot from Trey Broussard. But ultimately, Houston ended up adding it up all the way up to 13 to 4 in that game. It just crazy. It was 3 runs, and they added 3 runs, I should say, in the sixth inning, added 3 runs in the seventh inning, added a couple more in the eighth. They just never looked back. This was an impressive offensive outing. Trey Broussard, Tyler Cox, the names could go on and on. But from a macro perspective, what this means for the program is fascinating, because this win plus Texas Tech surprising blowout loss to BYU on Thursday night means Houston is now, as we presently speak, as we're recording this, in the 9th seed spot in the Big 12, which means they would play the 8th seed Oklahoma State in the Big 12 tournament. That's important because Oklahoma State is a competitive team you feel good about, but it also sets up for a much better second round if you can win that game. And so things are actually working in Houston's favor in this all of a sudden. If they match Texas Tech throughout the rest of the weekend, then they hold on to that 9th spot, which is important again for seeding with the Big 12 tournament next week. That being said, full disclosure, I think Texas Tech has a much easier road to the 9th spot. They can win the next 2 in Provo, Utah against a bad BYU team, and they get it, right? I don't think Houston sweeps Arizona at home. I would love to be surprised by this. What is fascinating about this, though, is Houston wins another, I believe it's 7. Shout out to Coogs Sox for this. I believe it's 7 times this season that Houston has won the first game of the series, which is important because that's typically the better starter, right? It's a little bit different this week. You didn't play a Tuesday game, but you're starting the series on Thursday, yada, 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 whatever, right? I do think it's worth pointing out that that streak has traditionally happened on Fridays, because you typically play Friday, Saturday, Sunday. For the folks that are keeping track at home, they make the last Big 12 series of the year go Thursday, Friday, Saturday. That we have Sunday open. If something crazy happens, you got to get an extra game in or something like that, right? Anyway, so that's how this weekend's gone. We started on Thursday and won that game. But Houston's really been really good on Fridays, and frankly, just had a pretty good night of batting, I should say, against Arizona's number 1 pitcher. And so you think that on Friday, they've been better, theoretically, this season against a different pitcher. Things could go Houston's way again. And then suddenly you get 2 on Arizona. So you're feeling really good about yourself. Meanwhile, TCU is winning in their weekend series, which indicates that Arizona will be the 5 seed and TCU will be the 4 seed. So you likely could find, I guess Arizona at the 5 seed would be if you fell back to the spot or 2, you end up finding them. TCU in the second round at the 4 seed, you can't worry about all that right now. If you get to that 9 seed and stay there, I guess if you stay at the 9 seed, you could end up playing Arizona State in the second round, and Houston peeled one off of them on a Friday night as well. And so you feel good about your chances there. The other thing that was interesting about this game, Houston wore their blue baseball jerseys. They were supposed to wear them against A&M. Look sweet. They're blue. I got my blue T-shirt on. Actually, it's a basketball of Houston T-shirt. But anyway, the blue with the Houston in script with white with red outlines. Very clean, crisp look. The hat is mostly blue panels, but the front was white with the red UH on it. It's pretty clean, crisp look there as well. And then we're going to wear it against A&M, and the game got canceled for weather. And so they break these out for Arizona on Thursday to open the series. And it interestingly adds to the lore of the blue uniforms. Houston football is 1-1 in blue. Men's basketball is 0-1. Softball is 1-0. Volleyball is 0-1. The women's tennis program is 0-1 as matches, and they lost that one in 4-0 style. So it was kind of looking like this blue thing wasn't going to work for Houston very well, but worked really well for Houston baseball as they win 13-4 in the uniforms. If you're keeping track of individual sports, I should point out that the golf teams did pretty well in large tournaments where they wore their blue outfits. And so I think that if you were to count that may actually help the blue uniforms in terms of win percentage. Whatever the case may be, I don't care if it's a blue uniform. I don't care if it's the color of the Gatorade they were drinking, what flavor protein bar he had in the locker room, in the dugout, I should say. Keep all of the mojo from whatever happened on Thursday night going. Right? Wear the same jockstrap, keep the same socks on. Keep the things moving, because 13-4 out against that Arizona team, diving catches in the outfield early, big bases clearing hits late. That's the kind of outing you need to see, and let's keep the hot streak going. Tyler Cox is embodying this. He's got 13 hits over the last 7 games. Xavier Perez has been kind of the solid figure the entire time. I feel like as a whole here, you could argue Houston's getting, if they can roll this into the rest of the weekend, you could talk about them getting hot at the right time, going to the Big 12 tournament and stuff like that. So we'll see what Friday and Saturday bring, and then we'll be wrapping things up with the Big 12 tournament, starting off Big 12 tournament as we head into Monday after a weekend of Houston Cougar baseball. We hope to know more about Milos Uzan after the weekend's over, right? To try out the NBA Combine tryout stuff all wraps up this weekend. Well, he may have individual workouts for teams if he pursues them after the fact. He does have to make a decision before May 28th, so we'll know more, hopefully, early on. Before that, any more news in Houston Cougar football, other basketball, more women's basketball continues to happen. If they make a softball hire, whatever the case may be, we'll be following it here each and every day at Locked On Coogs. So hit subscribe, hit the bell so we're live. Locked On Coogs, the primary Locked On podcast network. That means your team every day. Go Coogs.